I am telling you on the front lines what is happening. And there are militarized police force going in harassing longtime law-abiding citizens of Washington, D.C. And so when we, who are probably a little more familiar with American history perhaps than you, look at the military turning the police force on its own people, we remember the examples like Tulsa, when law enforcement dropped bombs on its own community. We know what it is like to have people.
From that, though.
We are not so far. We are not so far from that.
Greetings and welcome back to Wolf Kage Los Angeles. We got to talk about this. What you just saw. That was delusion dressed up as commentary. Tiffany Cross actually claims she's on the front lines. What front lines? What front lines? She doesn't live in South Central Los Angeles. She doesn't live in Chicago's West Side or Baltimore's East End. She's not walking through neighborhoods where gunshots ring out every weekend. She's not dodging gangs. She's not dodging drug dealers. She's not dodging the chaos of the streets where parents fear letting their kids walk to school. No, she lives far removed from that reality. Yes, she pretends she's in the thick of it, just like the rest of them do. You see, this is the game. Just like people like Roland Martin and the rest of the media clique, they project an image, an illusion to keep the machine alive. You know, the machine, the Democratic Party, the money that flows from it. That's the career. That's the paycheck. That's the circle they protect, not the communities they claim to represent. Just think about it. The average taxpayer in cities run by Democrats pays some of the highest local tax rates in the entire country. Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, sky high. Yeah, look around. Look around. Trash in the streets. Crime rates that rival war zones. Schools just falling apart. Now, what if those dollars would be being used properly? Shouldn't the neighborhoods reflect it? If they were being used properly. But the neighborhoods don't reflect it because the funds are not being used properly. Let's ask the hard question. Why is it that in places like Beverly Hills, why are the streets spotless? Why do the cops respond in minutes? Why is violent crime practically non-existent? Why is it that places like Martha's Vineyard, where politicians vacation, why doesn't it look like Skid Row? The answer is simple. Because in those places, they don't play around. Money goes where it's supposed to go. They protect what matters to them. But when it comes to poor urban neighborhoods, the message from elites is, don't believe your own lying eyes. Don't trust your own experience. Believe us instead. This is insulting. You should be insulted. I am. You know, and here's where it gets worse. They weaponize statistics. They'll cherry pick numbers, twist definitions, or compare apples to oranges just to convince you the streets are safer than you think, than you can see with your own eyes. But numbers can lie, especially when wielded by spin doctors. You could be sitting in your own living room, watching the local news report 3 shootings over the weekend in your own zip code, and the pundits will still insist crime is down. Are you crazy? They want you to question yourself, but they don't want you to question them. They want you hypnotized into silence while politicians protect their careers. You know, I'm tired of playing the same playbook. It's the same tired playbook over and over and over again. Every time reality gets too uncomfortable, what do these pundits do? They dust off old tragedies like Tulsa from 1921. Now, yes, Tulsa was horrific. One of the darkest stains in American history. But let's be real. Why can't they pull up a recent example? Because today's crisis is not Tulsa. It's the fact that in 2022 alone, over 24,000 people were murdered in the United States of America. And a huge percentage of those murders happened in Democrat-run cities. That's not history. That's the present moment. That's right now. And the victims are the same people the media claims to stand for. Meanwhile, the people who actually live in these communities are crying out. They're crying out. They're saying, please bring some more police. Please bring safety. But the Tiffany Crosses of the world, sitting comfortably, far from danger, say, no, defund the police. It's better for you. Better for who? Not the single mother working 2 jobs trying to keep her kids alive. Not the senior citizen who can't walk to the grocery store without being harassed. For the media elite, you have to understand, and this is very important, chaos pays. For the everyday citizen, chaos destroys. And that, folks, is not just dishonest. These people are evil. Evil because it manipulates pain for profit. Evil because it gaslights people into doubting their own lived reality. And evil because it sacrifices the well-being of an entire community for the comfort of a political brand.
CNN's own reporting says crime is down 19% from the weeks before.
I didn't say that it wasn't down.
So is it working? Is it helping?
No, it is not working.
I'm just saying
the police
the idea that this has never happened before.
Let me just tell you, a lot of people do not care what the police think or what the police unions think. They themselves are quite problematic.
Now, in the last clip, you just saw Abby Phillips and Tiffany Cross once again acting like these communities don't need police. And let's be honest, these two will be the first to call 911 if you so much as looked at their homes sideways. They've got private security. They live in neighborhoods where one suspicious car gets the cops called in 5 minutes flat. Yet they go on television to tell you that asking for safety is somehow wrong. This is the definition of hypocrisy, but it's hypocrisy for pay. And the truth is, Democrats have no ideas. They've studied problems. They've held hearings. They've made speeches. But where's the action? Crime is still exploding. Homelessness is still spreading. Families are still begging at city council meetings just to feel safe on their own blocks. And what do they get back? Excuses. You see, love him or hate him, at least Donald Trump, he's trying something. See, a real leader doesn't just talk. He puts ideas in motion. And that's exactly what terrifies these so-called city leaders. Because you see, the dirty little secret is this. Chaos is profitable. I say this over and over again, but you have to understand that chaos is profitable. Without crime, without disorder, there would be no CEOs of nonprofits pulling down six-figure salaries. There wouldn't be any politicians siphoning money into their pet projects. There wouldn't be a media industry selling fear while pretending to sell solutions. And yes, many of these pundits on TV get kickbacks, directly or indirectly, for protecting the same mayors, the same governors who preside over all of this disaster. You ever notice how angry residents begging for help at council meetings almost never make the news? That's not an accident. But here's what's happening now. Their day of reckoning is here because Donald Trump, like again, whether you love him or hate him, is exposing them. He's proving that it can be done. It's like a call center. You work at a call center. Everyone's taking 4 calls an hour. Then one worker comes along and he takes in 16. Suddenly, the whole crew is exposed. No more excuses. Trump's attempts, just the attempts alone, show the public who's been working and who's just been cashing checks. And let's not sugarcoat it. Human beings, like animals, respond to consequences. Reward good behavior, you get more of it. Let bad actors slide, and they get emboldened. That's why crime flourishes in these cities. Every time laws are ignored, criminals feel empowered. And while everyday citizens live with the fallout, the pundits, the politicians, don't feel the pain. Why? Because they've got gated homes, security patrols, and police who will show up when you call. They just want you to deal with it. And that's the scam. These people want you to see them as celebrities. They want you to give them applause, the admiration, the paycheck. But heaven forbid you ask a tough question. They'll cut you off, shout you down, and label you as the problem. Once you see that clearly, you realize their motives were never about protecting you. Their motive was always about protecting their brand, the Democratic Party. So now let's listen to the next lunatic speaking as if she represents you and me, the American people, when in reality, she's just peddling propaganda. And every word is another slap in the face because deep down, she thinks we're too dumb to notice.
Don't take the bait, because most Americans are more worried about how are we going to address mental health issues, the visible homelessness that we see on streets, and how do we deal with mental health and other issues that drive the sort of random incidents that scare all of us. That's what you should be talking about. That's where you should be focused. Don't take the bait in talking about migrant crime or carjackings or the things that actually don't matter to that many Americans.
You just heard her stand on stage and say we should focus on mental health instead of real safety, as if worrying about therapy sessions should come before worrying about whether your child makes it home from school alive. Think about that. The truth is, mental health is directly tied to feeling safe. When you can't walk down the street without fear, when your house has to look like a prison with bars on the windows, when you can't take your child to the park without dodging vagrants and addicts, that destroys your mental health. Safety is the foundation of well-being. Without it, The rest is just empty talk. But what do these pundits do? Day after day after day, they try to plant a seed in your mind. They want you to believe that you don't actually care about your own safety. They want you to believe that you don't care about your own property, your own kids. No, they say you should care about what they tell you to care about. That's manipulation. That's gaslighting. And it's exhausting to hear over and over again when every one of us knows better. You know what matters in your life. You don't need someone on TV to explain it to you. Let's get real. When you're worried about your child getting caught in crossfire on the way home from school, the last thing on your mind is a therapy session. When your community is plagued with shootings, carjackings, and overdoses, mental health over safety is an insult. People want safe streets, period. And finally, we're hearing more voices rise up and say enough is enough. And that's why, like it or not, many folks are relieved to see what Trump is doing. They see at least someone is willing to try. Someone is actually talking about fixing the real problem for the first time in years. People feel like someone cares about the community, not just the gated community these TV pundits live in. And that contrast is impossible to ignore, because here's the pattern. These pundits live far, far away from the chaos, as I keep saying. They sit behind cameras, collect fat paychecks. And even with the fat paychecks, they'll pretend like they're struggling at the gas station too. They'll pretend like groceries cost a lot for them as well. Millionaires. They lecture you about what you shouldn't care about while enjoying all the things you're being told to ignore. Police protection. They got clean streets. Their kids go to safe schools. Newsom's kids never even left school during the lockdowns. Meanwhile, they distract you with debates about gender identity or issues that don't touch your daily life or really your life at all. It's theater, and you're supposed to clap along while your community burns. But luckily now the mask is slipping. More and more people are speaking up. More people are calling out the lies. And the message is clear. Safety is not optional. Without it, nothing else matters. Check out this next clip.
Well, I'm glad they're cracking down on crime. That's all I can say.
I feel a lot safer, so I'm actually really happy.
I feel like the nation's finally becoming safe again with this, so it's nice that he has our backs and he's protecting us.
I think extra security is always a good thing, especially in the metro. I mean, if you got crime, you need police, you need extra protection out there. I don't have a problem with it.
There are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of clips of people talking just like this, showing people of every background, black, white, Asian, Latino, you name it, celebrating the simple joy of walking without fear, of going to the store without having to watch their backs, of being able to wear a watch, of not having to keep their head on a swivel every second of every day. That is what law enforcement is supposed to guarantee: peace of mind. The buffer between law-abiding citizens and the bad actors who lurk in the shadows or sometimes in broad daylight. Now, sure, every profession has a few bad apples. I'm not saying they don't. And policing is no different. But contrary to what liberal media likes to push, those cases are rare. Statistics back that up. According to federal data, over 50 million police interactions happen each year, and only a tiny fraction involve misconduct. But you wouldn't know that from watching cable news, especially liberal cable news, because the cameras never turn towards the community breathing easier thanks to safer streets. They only highlight the exception, not the rule. Meanwhile, the real bad actors, they don't wear badges. They don't need uniforms. Some wear hoodies, some wear masks, some wear business suits. But they are everywhere, every day. And without police, there's no buffer between them and you. You're left to fend for yourself. And here's the kicker. In many Democrat-run cities, if you do defend yourself, if you do protect your own life, your family, or your property, guess who gets turned into the criminal? You. They'll drag you into court for daring to survive. Interesting, right? Yet the pundits keep defending this chaos over and over again. The politicians keep enabling it. The talking heads keep gaslighting you into thinking you don't see what's right in front of your eyes. Speaking of which, check out this guy. Maybe you remember his name is Trim Walls, another nut job spouting his usual nonsense. Look at this guy.
the privilege of my lifetime was stand beside someone we know was the most qualified and would have been a fantastic president in a President Harris. And look, we wouldn't wake up every day to a bunch of on TV and a bunch of nonsense, not a man-child crying about whatever's wrong with him. May his fat ankles find something today. Petty and...
You know, I've said it time and time and time again. These are not serious people. These are not leaders. These are not the kind of men and or women who should be trusted with office, with power, or shaping the future of this country. When they get in front of the camera, are they talking about lowering your taxes? Are they talking about improving your life? Are they talking about fixing your schools? Are they talking about strengthening your communities? No, they're like children hurling insults at the president because the one thing they can't stand is being exposed for doing nothing. And then there's Kamala Harris. They keep talking about her. Why? I don't know. They actually had the nerve to suggest she could have been president. On what grounds? Kamala has no ideas. She has no strategies. She has no vision. Remember when she parroted Trump's line about no tax on tips as if it were her own? That moment alone told you everything about her. This is someone who has no original thought, no blueprint for the future. Nothing. America is not a hobby. America is not a hobby. It's not a social club. America is a business, and it has to be run like one, or it goes bankrupt. And right now, it's bleeding red ink. Say what you will about Trump, love or hate him, but he understands business, international trade, negotiation, leverage. Those are tools of survival on the global stage. He was the best man for the job because he treated America like what it is, the biggest enterprise on planet Earth. Win or fail, the effort was real, and that alone put him miles ahead of career politicians who've never run anything bigger than a Senate office. Contrast that with people like Tim Walz and nearly every Democrat leader. They don't speak like executives. They don't speak like problem solvers. They speak like actors, reading lines, chasing applause, playing to the camera. And that's exactly what they are. A political cabal, a troupe of paid performers bankrolled by NGOs, bankrolled by billionaires, and shadow money to sell you illusions while the country crumbles right behind the curtain. Listen to their words. It's all doublespeak, upside down logic, promises that can never be delivered. They obsess over fringe issues that have nothing to do with the American people's lives. And for some bizarre reason, this is the thing that befuddles me all the time. 9 times out of 10, their priorities revolve around sex. Sex politics, obsessions that distract from real crises like debt, crime, inflation, and safety. It's a circus. And you're the audience they hope stays hypnotized. So when you hear their speeches full of backward talk, detached priorities, and issues that never touch your life, remember this. It's not real. It never was, and it never will be. It's theater.
The party is almost becoming like a cult that worships these weird progressive idols, and then sort of the only thing they have to offer is these insults, like Tim Walz body shaming the president. You know, Tim Walz going around body shaming to me is like the Taliban criticizing someone for religious intolerance.
Think of how easy it would be to be a damn Republican. Oh, what should I wear today? This stupid freaking red hat. What should I say today? I don't know. Just make sure it's cruel. Who do we listen to? That guy. Oh, the felon in the White House? Yeah, listen to him and that will be fine. Now he's talking about burning flags. He's going to have flag burning or whatever because he knows there's a hell of a lot of flags with his picture on it that are going to get burned.
So once again, we've got Tim Walz up here talking and talking and talking, but not actually saying anything whatsoever. But what's your plan, sir? What would you do, sir? What do the American people need from you, sir? No answer. Because the truth is, he's not concerned with us or solutions. He's concerned with power, period. That's it. That's all. Now he shifts gears, talking about cruel words. Let's be clear. The words he's labeling as cruel are not cruel at all. They're words of truth. And in today's political theater, truth is treated like hate speech. These politicians are literally paid to pretend the unreal is real, to act like fantasy is fact, so long as you believe it. It's gaslighting on a national scale. It's nuts. And here's the dangerous part. If you keep lying long enough, even the liar begins to believe their own lie. That's why they speak with such conviction. It doesn't feel like a lie anymore. Some of them were probably brainwashed before they even opened their mouths, in my opinion. Others have brainwashed themselves over time, probably. But if you have common sense, the kind of universal sense every human is born with, I think you could see straight through it. What they're championing is imaginary. It can't be real. It never will be real. And don't forget, they're not doing this for free. No, these people are paid. These people are paid by you, the taxpayer, to stand up there and tell lies with a straight face to you, to brainwash you into focusing on nonsense that doesn't improve your life, but actually makes it worse. Imagine paying someone to mislead you over and over while calling it leadership, because that's exactly what's happening here. So now Walls is fixated on flag burning, cruelty, and sideshow issues. But here's the kicker. You know what I think? I think Trump is playing this deliberately. I think that every time he takes action, these so-called leaders expose themselves. If Trump says, we'll clean up the streets, they shout against it. If he says, stop burning the flag, they oppose it. If he says, let's get America healthier, they'll stand in the way. What does that reveal? That they don't care about the people. They care about keeping the chaos alive. And here's where the plan flips. The brainwash will keep nodding along, but the awakened are starting to see. People are noticing the pattern because it's so blatant now. Every move Trump makes pulls back the curtain, showing who's actually working for America and who's working against it. And that exposure, it's the real plan, I think.
Would you also like to get federal funding to help put 5,000 more cops on the street in Chicago? Would that help drive down crime?
Well, look, policing by itself is not the full strategy.
No, I understand that. You've talked about the other things you want, and I said those are good and important programs, but I'm asking also, would 5,000 more police officers on the street in Chicago be helpful to go along with all of those social programs that a lot of cities are engaging in and having success with?
Well, look, here's the best way I can put it, Joe, is that in the 90s when I was in high school, we had 3,000 more police officers and we had 900 people being murdered every single year in Chicago. It's just not policing alone. Of course, we want more detectives.
I know it's not policing alone, but I know it's not policing alone. You've told me everything else you want. Do you believe that the streets of Chicago would be safer if there were more uniformed police officers on the streets of Chicago?
I believe the city of Chicago and cities across America would be safer if we actually had, affordable housing. Look,
okay,
I'm not saying that
that's not the question I asked. Would an additional 5,000 cops on the streets in Chicago help complement those programs to make Chicago safer?
Look, we are working hard to make sure that our police department is fully supported. I don't believe that just simply putting out an arbitrary number around police officers is the answer.
Did you catch Brandon Johnson on that last clip? Did you see the look in his eyes? That wasn't the look of a confident leader. To me, that was the look of a man doing somebody else's bidding, a man who's being paid, a man who's being pressured, a man who's being pushed into betraying the very people he's supposed to be serving. Because let's be honest, none of his policies make sense whatsoever. He's got black residents, his own base, standing up at community meetings, screaming against his decisions. He's got illegal aliens being moved into neighborhoods, siphoning away what little resources the citizens had left. And what does Johnson say? He wants to bring in more. Tell me, how do you serve your constituents by doing the exact opposite of what they are begging you to do? That's not leadership. That's betrayal. And this isn't just Chicago. Look here in Los Angeles. Families are being displaced. Entire homes burned down before insurance policies can even process. And most people got their insurance taken away right before the big fires. That was interesting, too. And then, like clockwork, developers swoop in, many of them backed by foreign money, especially Chinese investors buying up that land for cheap. Does that make sense to you? You think that was a coincidence? Or is it the same playbook, city after city, state after state? The corruption runs so deep, most people can't even fathom it. The average citizen thinks there's no way our leaders could be that evil. But they are. And they're worse than you think. That's why Johnson dodged Morning Joe's simple question. Would 3,000 more police officers help to reduce a little bit of crime? He couldn't answer. Instead, he ran it back to the 1990s, claiming that cops didn't matter then, so they don't matter now. And you can see it in his eyes. It's nonsense, and he knows it. Then came the lie. Affordable housing will stop killings. Affordable housing will stop robberies, violence. Really? Housing doesn't stop bullets, but it does create cover for what he's really doing. Securing shelter for illegal immigrants to pad census numbers, voter rolls, and political power. It's not about crime. It's not about safety. It's about keeping their machine alive. And here's the bottom line. Chaos is profitable. Can't stress it enough. Stability is not. Chaos creates grants, contracts, programs, nonprofits, millions in the pockets of politicians and their friends. That's how you explain politicians with $200,000 salaries living like multimillionaires. The math doesn't add up unless you see the game for what it is. So don't be fooled. These people don't work for you. They don't work for your family. They work for the invisible hands funding their rise. And until more of us, more citizens wake up, they'll keep cashing checks while our communities collapse. But a lot of us are not blind anymore. We see it. We're speaking it. And we won't be gaslit into silence. I'm Wolf Kage, and this has been Wolf Kage Los Angeles. Stay unwoke. And until the next time, peace.